Sarah, the one that got away. The Pikachu that fled the battle that Rudius wasn't able to capture. He's got himself that Squirtle. Got the Bulbasaur, but he never got the Pikachu. The Pikachu got away. But yes, hats off to the studio for how they handled this episode. Gave an entire episode to this one chapter. I mean, granted, there's like a bit of another chapter, and at the very end, there's a little bit of an extra chapter for Eris. But like for a majority of this episode, it's one chapter. It's literally just this one job that Rudius does with Roxy and Sylphie and then ends up running into Sarah. And I think that's great because, yes, and they didn't really get into full details of it, but I'm glad they did this because they completely messed up how Rudius separated from Sarah back there. It's similar to Eris. I keep complaining to people that this entire segment of Volume 6 was skipped, and they still didn't adapt it. Even though they gave Eris 2 episodes at the beginning of the season, they still couldn't adapt that little segment that tells what's going through Eris's head when she actually left Rudius' side, like what she was struggling with, like everything around her entire backstory and everything, and how the fact that Rudius was the only one that she was going to ever be able to be with. Like her parents thought that Rudius was legit the last chance that she has it with any romance, and again, how much she adores Rudius and why she ends up doing what she does. Sarah was the same way. In Volume 6 and in the adaptation into second season Part 1, they skip this whole extra little chapter there that gets into Sarah finding out what was going on with Rudius and how she felt really bad about it. Why she ran away from Rudius, why she got so angry at him, all that stuff was completely skipped by the anime adaptation. So while they didn't get into all that stuff, at least right here, yes, we finally get that moment where Sarah tells Rudius, "I'm sorry, I found out about your problem and that was mean of me." It's this great moment between the two of them realizing we just misunderstood each other. We were both going through something, and that just kind of clashed. We didn't communicate with each other, and that clashed. I said horrible things. You said horrible things. We got to clear the air here. Let's just get over this and kind of clear the air. It's really great to finally again get this whole segment. And again, I'm glad they took their time. I'm glad this wasn't just a montage that I was kind of expecting it to turn into being, because they didn't seem to care about Sarah back there. Why would they care about it here? But let's just get into the episode proper like usual. For those that are new here, yes, I do impressions of the episode of Mushoku Tensei as well as get into skip content. So if you're looking for skip content, this is the place to be. I won't get into additional stuff. I will kind of give my own discretion as to what I think is going to be covered later on. We did find out at the beginning of this episode, yes, they did technically move things around. That is a possibility there, but I kind of use my best judgment as to what's important to kind of cover. But let's just get into it. Kicking off the episode with, yes, we get the scene with Suzanne. I'm really happy they actually had this little scene because I kind of assumed they were going to skip it. I covered this all in my video back in episode 4 because that's where this actually was. But I'm glad I covered it back then. I definitely recommend people going back there and checking out my video for it because even though it's right here and we finally get to see Rudius talking to Suzanne and Suzanne, telling him about what happened with Counter Arrow, they still didn't cover anything else in there. There's still a lot here to do with sort of, the legacy of an individual. There's a lot to do with the fact that Rudius had a girl instead of a boy. So there's a question about, him having an heir to the family and that not being really important to Rudius, and how Suzanne's like, well, Timothy doesn't think that way. I wish he thought that way. But additionally, yes, it gets into a lot here when Zenith enters the room about Zenith's condition and Rudius' fear of Zenith harming Lucy, even though he doesn't want to believe that he does trust Zenith because he does adore Zenith, but there's still the aspect of not really knowing what's going through her head. What is this condition doing to her? What could she potentially harm this child? We want to put up safeguards so that doesn't actually happen, which again, I kind of respect the, Refugian to get into that kind of stuff because I personally have faced that. Having individuals that have changed because of some sort of issue in their brain, you don't know what they're going to do. You have to be careful because you don't know what might be going through their heads. You have to put up those safeguards. So again, I was kind of happy they kind of got into that stuff, but again, they just don't want to cover it with the anime adaptation, even though they finally got the scene. They didn't want to cover it. But I will say, that all aside, even though they did still skip everything, and I'm glad I covered it, Lucy was adorable. Lucy in this scene, super adorable. I'm loving what they're doing with her character design. She's just absolutely the cutest thing. I definitely understand with Rudius wanting to spend all of his time. Like, Rudius should be doing other stuff, but he's literally coming here when their wet nurse is here, supposed to be taking care of Lucy. He's still taking the job away from Suzanne. Suzanne's like, I can do that stuff, right? That's what I'm here for. You guys are paying me to take care of Lucy. He's like, that's right. I'm good. I want to stay here with Lucy. It's like, dude, go get a job. Go get a job or something. It's good. It's good. But yeah, jump to the next part where we have the job that was given to Roxy. It kind of gets into a little bit more detail with the novel and the fact that, yes, at some point, Roxy comes to Rudius and says, hey, I got this job that was offered to me. It's this pilgrimage thing that these, royalties and whatnot end up doing. It was apparently a local tradition. When the royals of the Renoa approached the age of majority, they were required to journey around the country as a sort of training exercise. It wasn't too strenuous. They would just spend 6 months going to visiting different places in the country. Since they weren't permitted guards, they were expected to make their own arrangements, hiring their own people, finding their own way around, and seeing the country with their own eyes. Theoretically, this was to grow into better rulers. It was known as a coming-of-age pilgrimage. Local mayors and governors were always expecting this, keeping tabs of the ages of the royal prince and princesses, making sure to anticipate their timing. It sounded creepy, but it was obvious they didn't want a member of the royal family to get injured in their territory. Yeah, so they're like keeping tabs of what the ages of all these individuals are, because they're like, okay, about this year, they're going to have to come to this area. We got to make sure that we, cull a lot of the monsters. We, keep an eye out on them when they do come through so they don't die here, because it would look really bad on our territory if they died here. While they would surround them with guards, they weren't permitted to do so. However, when the royal members requested guards, they were allowed to provide them. This time, a party of adventurers were hired to escort, but their mage and healer fell ill. They would recover soon, but they wouldn't be able to make the trip in time, and winter was approaching. Not wanting to be trapped here, the royal family had requested bodyguards from the city. The mayor held a conference with the leaders of the Mages Guild and the university. Again, very important people here. In order to choose the most suitable candidates for the job. One such candidate stood out from the rest. A well-traveled former adventurer, practical skills in offensive magic, brand new member of the university's faculty, with few responsibilities to be reassigned. In other words, yes, Roxy. Of course, Roxy being new to the university and everything like that. She had a class and everything like that, but she's not really invested in a lot of things quite yet. So she's the perfect person for the job. But no, it's funny because when Roxy does ask Rudius, hey, can you help me out with this job that I got? Rudius is like, oh, you mean you want me to come with you so that I can see you do your thing? He's like, no, I want you to help me out because I got to guard 2 people that are very important, 2 royal family members. I got to make sure I don't mess up. And you know how clumsy I am? Yeah, you're kind of clumsy. Yes, Sylphie was going too, and she did mention the fact that Luke was coming along too, but Rudius is like, well, Luke's not going to be very useful. But he doesn't want to say anything. He literally is in his mind thinking about how Luke is kind of useless, but he doesn't want to say that out loud. Which, yeah, it makes sense, right? Because way back at the wedding, when Rudius first had that little, get together for him marrying Sylphie, at the end, Luke wanted to duel Rudius. Rudius, a mage, beat him. That was a sign to him that, man, this Luke guy's really weak. I can't really trust him at all. But yeah, Rudius kind of agrees to this whole thing mainly because he feels like if this does go well, if this royal family member does kind of successfully do this, this could help, improve Roxy's reputation because this is the person that they're actually asking to help. They're wanting Roxy to do this. They're not asking Rudius to do it. They're asking Roxy to do it, and Roxy's bringing Rudius along. Which is kind of funny because as we see... Roxy pretty much handles everything. As we see, as everything kind of plays out, Roxy's pretty much soloing everything because she's used to this stuff. She's solo labyrinths by herself. And yes, there's a reputation given to her. They're talking about the fact that, oh yes, we did hear about this person that was at the university that apparently, conquered the teleportation labyrinth. So they know who Roxy is through rumors and whatnot. They just didn't believe it because when they seen Roxy, they just seen this kid. As we see, when they first meet up, that's why that lady's giving Roxy a bad look. And it kind of mentions in the novel that, yeah, technically Rudius notes that Ariel gives a little bit of a grin or something like that. He knows that, yeah, probably Ariel told this, woman from this party, you're going to see this young girl come in. Don't say anything. Rudius assumes that Ariel told him don't say anything because this woman sees Roxy and immediately is like, who is this little girl? And she doesn't say anything. It keeps it to herself. So yeah, they were a little bit upset at the idea of being stuck with this little girl, but then very quickly realize, oh, she's really good. She's really good at what she does. They mentioned the fact that, yes, they have these 2 members that they lost, that they're not currently in the group. Roxy's fulfilling both those roles. She's fulfilling the healer and the attacker. But yes, Rudius agrees. They end up getting there. They meet the party and everything like that. And yes, eventually bumps into Sarah. We get the reappearance of Sarah after, 7 volumes, I think, at this point. No, we're on volume 13, so about 6 volumes at this point. 6 volumes since we ran to Sarah last time. Rudius finally runs into her again, and yeah, quickly the glances at each other. But I do love this because upon the re-meeting of Sarah, there's something that's kind of jumps out at me a lot. And that's what they're talking about as they enter the room. You have this mage girl and she's talking about how they're having problems and everything like that. And Sarah responds saying, more importantly, you've got to learn how to work with anyone if you want people to respect you. Adventurers don't just get the luxury of staying in the same party forever, you know. I don't remember this in the anime or not, but if I remember correctly, it was specifically in the novel. That's totally a Suzanne thing. That is totally a Suzanne thing. This is like the first thing that kind of stood out at me is this idea that, yeah, Sarah learned a lot from Suzanne, and she sort of took in the position that Suzanne had. Because Suzanne was Sarah's big sister, was always taking care of her, was showing her the ropes, helping her be a better adventurer. And now that Sarah is on her own and she's in this other party, she's now doing the same thing for somebody else. She's brought somebody under her wing, and now she's kind of guiding somebody else. It's such a Suzanne comment that she makes right here. And I'm like, oh, she's become like her big sister. It's so nice. That aside, though, there was one very kind of important thing that was talked about in this room, and that is between Ariel and this other princess. The other princess says, by the way, Princess Ariel, how long you been staying in our kingdom? Ariel says, well, let me see. Not counting my journey, it's been a little less than 6 years. This country is essentially a second home to me by now. The Renoan says, oh, doesn't that mean you'll be graduating next year then? What a shame. I only just got to know you, and you'll be leaving soon. And Ariel says, I suppose so, yes. But as long as our countries stay in contact, I'm sure we'll meet again. So this is kind of a sign here that, yes, Ariel's still planning on leaving. That was again, sort of the original thing here is that Ariel was fleeing to the north. She came up here for safety, and she's staying here, but she's also kind of, building up contacts. That's why she's here with this Renoan. She's trying to make a contact with them so that later on, when she needs help, she can nudge them and say, hey, remember me, your friend? Yeah, can you help me out with something? She's trying to gain power outside of her kingdom and connections and whatnot that will protect her and shield her. Anyways, now the party's all together. They go out on their little journey here, their pilgrimage, and yes, there's a lot in here is Rudius in his head trying to figure out what he's going to do with the situation. Originally, it kind of gets into him really kind of assuming, okay, we're both professionals. We're here for a job. I mean, Sarah's been doing her work for a long time. She knows what she's doing. We're both just going to focus on the job, get it done as professionals. There's no use in bringing anything up. There's no reason for me to go to her and apologize about that or even confront her to talk to her because all I'm going to talk about is painful things in the past. Let's just put that aside. Let's just leave it there, get the job done, go our separate ways. He even mentioned at some point we'll finish the job and I'll apologize for, making things awkward and then we'll just move on. That whole thing. But of course, as they're running around doing all their work, both Sarah is giving him glances and glares and Sylphie picks up on some point. W Sylphie. This entire segment is W Sylphie moment because Sylphie's the entire time going, Rudius, why aren't you doing anything? Rudius, why aren't you saying anything? Ariel picks up on it too. I like how they have that little brief moment of showing the conversation between Sylphie and Ariel is like a moment of yeah, something happened between the two of them. Sylphie gets an idea of what kind of happened, but she's not 100% because she's heard stories from Rudius, but she's kind of assuming, oh, that must be that girl. In this conversation, they know something went down between these two people, and it's like that moment of okay, we got to get them to talk. But again, Rudius this entire time is just thinking, I'm just going to make it worse. It's just going to make it worse. It's best not to confront it. Just let it be. I think that's something I can relate to a lot, is this idea that Rudius is assuming that if I try to dredge it back up, it's just going to cause more problems. Where if I don't say anything, it's going to cause probably a discomfort here, but hopefully things don't get worse. But as we find out later on, he's like, no, I'm making it worse. He eventually realizes, no, I think I'm making things worse by the fact that I didn't, just talk to her to begin with. he kind of regrets not just immediately going to her and saying, okay, it sucks that it happened. I'm sorry. Let's just move on. He's like, damn it, I made things worse. When Sylphie does bring up the idea of him talking to Sarah, he doesn't really want to because, again, he feels like it's just going to make it worse. He has nothing to talk to her about but besides a painful past. But still, for him personally, he does acknowledge it as being wounds in his own mind. These are wounds that are still kind of raw for him. But yes, that's when Ariel speaks up. Oh, those fruits back there, they were so juicy looking. I wish I could have one of those. Nudge, nudge. Kind of nudge them into having to go. Sarah accepts it, and then she kind of suggests that both Sylphie and Rudius goes. I like this because Ariel wants Rudius to figure this out and knows that it's causing a problem. She wants to help them out. Ariel's doing this to help them out. But she's still, like, considerate to Sylphie, and the idea that Sylphie might not want Rudius to go alone off with somebody that he had a relationship with. So she's being nice to say Sylphie should go too, but then Sylphie's like, no, don't worry, I trust my man. I mean, it's more for the fact that later on, as we find out, Sylphie's like, I mean, if you two are into each other, just let me know. Just let me know. That whole bit at the very end here is a really good little moment there. But yeah, it's just more of like a gut punch here because Sylphie's like, don't worry, my man doesn't hide from things. And Rudy's like, I am totally hiding from things right now. Rudy's like, I'm totally hiding from things right now. Sorry. Both from my past and with Sarah, I'm hiding that all. But I know, I like that he's kind of finally confronting it. Like, yeah, my whole ED thing that I had is a thing of the past. I have a family now. I'm a father now. I gotta stop being a coward. I gotta finally confront this thing. Which is kind of funny to the idea that, you know, in the end of this entire little segment here, he's still even considering Eris, but he's still, like, confronted with the issue that she did this thing to me. Like, even though he's right now wanting to confront something and stop, you know, dwelling on it and, you know, resolve it and get the apologies out there, he still in the end is thinking about how this can't be forgiven. I have trouble with this thing. Eris, how she, you know, abandoned me. But yes, Rudius goes off with Sarah, has a little conversation. They get into a little bit about the idea of having a full female party, which of course has its kind of benefits. Rudius acknowledged that it would be risky to trust pretty young girls with a gang of smelly, aggressive men if they had men in the party itself. A lot of adventurers were one step removed from being street thugs. Even if higher ranks were more professional, this situation was more reassurance. Not that women were always kind to each other, of course. Being all-female also removed romantic drama. If Rudius joined Counter Arrow, he'd probably be that for Sarah and the others. I mean, even though they still disbanded, I mean, it was more not necessarily because of the situation with Rudius and Sarah. They disbanded, as Suzanne said, because, yeah, they lost a member, and it's very difficult to recover from that kind of thing. And yes, in the end, they end up just going their own separate ways. You know, Patrice went off his direction, Suzanne and Timothy got married and everything, Sarah went off and started doing her own adventuring by herself. But yeah, it kind of shows the benefits to the idea of having an all-female party, even though she kind of mentions that, yeah, as it goes up, as you go higher in ranks, it's kind of harder to find those individuals. And also Rudius mentions the fact that over in the Demon Continent, it was like, you never seen a whole female party. Again, as she kind of mentions it, you're typically looking for people with skill, not necessarily gender. You're not looking around going, well, you can't join our party unless you're female. Oh, you're really good with the sword? Join our party. We need you. But yeah, as they had their conversation, Rudius kind of recognized the fact that Sarah's, you know, doing well. That he's kind of happy by the fact that, you know, their whole encounter with each other didn't leave her devastated and broken, that she has kind of got back on her feet. But that's when she brings up the idea of him being married with kids now, enjoying life, and immediately this hits Rudius. In his mind, he's thinking Sarah's tone sounded a bit accusatory. They broke up because of his performance in bed, and now he was here with two women. He wasn't sure if she knew about his ED, but he had compared her unfavorably to a prostitute in public. That was no way to treat someone who had feelings for you. And that's when he apologizes. She gets mad. Again, this is his whole problem that he's having right here is because he's assuming that, you know, Sarah in front of him is devastated because he did something horrible to her. Again, going back here, let's go a little flashback here for people that forgot what happened in that situation. Yes, Sarah was pursuing him, and he's like, oh, I think this girl likes me. And at some point, it's like, oh, maybe she's okay with doing that thing. So they go off and they find a room together. And when they get in there, he immediately starts taking off all his clothes and getting on top of her, and she is smoking. Like, this girl is smoking. He's looking at her, and she's like, this girl is hot. But my thing ain't working. Why is my thing ain't working? There's no reason for that. What I'm looking at here is beautiful. Why would this not be working? It's that point that kind of crushes him. Oh, it's because my fear of this thing. What happened with Sarah? Because I slept with Eris, she immediately left me. I'm afraid of that happening again, and that's why it's not performing. From Sarah's perspective, she feels like Rudius doesn't think she's beautiful. She thinks that she's not attractive. She feels like in this situation, the problem is not his ED that she doesn't know about. It's her own body. And so she feels body shame and leaves. And it's only amplified by the fact that when she comes back to talk to him again, he's talking bad about her body to Soldat and the prostitute. And she gets furious by this, smacks him. But still, later on, she ends up talking to that prostitute. And the prostitute informs her the fact that Rudius had ED. And that's the moment where she's like, crap, I wish I could apologize to him. I wish I could see him again so I can tell him I'm sorry. This is her moment. So again, you have two perspective here. Somebody that's like, damn, I made her feel bad and I talked bad about her in front of a prostitute and Soldat. And over here, she's like, damn, I didn't consider his feelings, the fact that he was nearly ending his life because he wasn't performing in bed. Like, I caused him to nearly take his own life. But yeah, anyways, back to here. After they kind of are apologizing to each other, he does admit at some point that, I don't think I had feelings for you. I just got done with this whole breakup with Eris, and you were there, like you liked me, and I think I just honestly just wanted to move on. And you were sort of my way to move on. It's kind of a mean, but at the same time, honest admission to Sarah that I don't think I ever had feelings for you. And he assumed that she'd be angry by that comment, but he was being honest with her. She was honest with me. I want to be honest to her. I didn't have feelings for you. I like this, though, because this transitions into sort of the bigger question mark that I think a lot of people are going to be having at this point of the story. I think a lot of people watching this episode are going to be like, why not? He picks up Sylphie, goes, I'm going to be devoted to her. Oh, Roxy. Oh, yeah, Rox. But that's it. Just these two. Oh, now Sarah's here. No, this is where I'm going to draw the line. Like, why here does he draw the line? I like to get into sort of what makes Rudeus tick. And yes, it's not like the most like solidified answer. I don't really feel like it's like the most like concrete answer because it feels like it still has a bit of vagueness there. But right here, Rudeus is trying to explain sort of what makes Roxy and Sylphie special. And he gets a little bit of that when he talks to them later on. The fact that these two individuals step forward and sacrifice something for me. Yes, Sylphie, she came to me, she gave up her body, she just like downed a bunch of aphrodisiacs. It was very painful for her probably. This was not a comfortable thing here. It was pretty violent, whatnot. Like, she was willing to put herself out there to save me, to bring me out of my ED, which was literally killing him. It was literally killing him. He wanted to end it because it was something that was so debilitating for him. It was his manhood gone. He didn't feel like a man because it didn't work. She did that for me. She saved me. She sacrificed everything to save me. Then later on, Roxy did the same thing. When I was at my end, I just lost Paul. And I realized that point that even though I wanted to do differently in this life, I did the same thing again. I turned my back on my family. I didn't recognize Paul as my father until the very end, until I lost him. I did the same thing in the second life that I did in the first life. And he was ending at that point. He was letting himself starve to death. He was almost dead. And then Roxy came in, and again, sacrificed her body, gave herself up to him, and that's what saved him. It's people that come to him that are willing to sacrifice themselves for his sake. That's what he seems to be drawn to. And yeah, Sarah, in this response, looks a little sad. She realizes, oh, yeah, I guess I could have never won your heart. I don't think I could have done that. I wasn't able to do that back there because I was too busy thinking about myself. I think that's really what she's thinking about there. Like, yeah, we had that little moment and you were above me and I went, me. All I could think about in that moment wasn't necessarily what's wrong with you. And they tried a bunch of stuff, let's be honest. I mean, it didn't really cover it in the anime, but yes, in the novel, they tried a bunch of stuff. They did a few things and it never got going. So it wasn't like a quick bam, but she did step away. She did feel like she was a problem. She felt she was wrong. She felt like she had something wrong with her. He wasn't attracted to me. Something about me. She wasn't able to do what Sylphie and Roxy did. And that's what right here he's acknowledging is making them special. And again, it's what they kind of get into at the very end there. And it sucks. It's an answer to, honestly, anybody that's going to be questioning right now, why not Sarah? Like, why doesn't he just make a big, massive harem? Just bring them all into the picture. This is why. In the end, as much as you want to say this is a harem, typical harem anime, there's a logic here. There's a logic system behind Rudeus. What he feels might be it. Again, he doesn't know for sure. Like, even right here, he's like, I think it's this thing. I think it's this thing. It's like these certain people are special. I think that's what it is. And Sarah, again, right here realizes I couldn't fit that role. That's why I didn't win you. Rudeus thought it sounded a bit transactional, but it was a fact. They won him over by being there for him when he needed them. Maybe it was what distinguished them from Sarah. And it's still a nice little scene, though. It's still nice to finally see, again, this conclusion, because this is something that's been sort of weighing on him for the longest time. This was a mistake in his mind. This was sort of something that he needed to address, he needed to confront, and he's finally got that option to do here. And again, same for Sarah. Same for Sarah. This was somebody that she, by all signs, seemed to like. I think in the end, even though Rudeus himself doesn't feel like he was attached to Sarah, I think Sarah was to him. I think Sarah did love him. But yeah, after this, everything going well, Sarah's performance improves, firing off shots exactly where it needed to go. In general, her role was to stand slightly back and calmly direct the flow of the battle. It reminded Rudeus of Suzanne, who shouted out friendly orders. Again, he sees Suzanne. She turned into Suzanne. Sarah had a different style, but she always kept her young mage on target and position. It was quite a contrast to the impulsive but talented kid from the old days. Maybe having someone younger to look after helped her mature. Whatever the case was, she was the very picture of a veteran adventurer. But yeah, also during this entire time, we also had Roxy. Best girl Roxy was catching the attention of one of the other party members. Again, this other girl, was it Alyssa? Alyssa just became like super attached to Roxy, calling her big sister and stuff like that. Just like following her everywhere, just like looking up to her like crazy. Teach me everything, Shisho. Big sister master. Yeah, cool action scenes. I love the first segment especially, that whole little moment where she does a fireball and then Roxy's like flamethrower and just freaking destroy this freaking bear. Just absolutely obliterates it. The second part was a little bit more questionable because I don't remember there being ever a mention of a treant attacking Roxy in this entire segment, so I'm not sure where they got that from. It was more to show how Sarah was improving. Once they had the conversation, the awkwardness was gone. Suddenly Sarah's into her game. Sarah's suddenly doing exactly what she normally does. She's guiding them. She knows she's calling out orders and whatnot. But yeah, Roxy allowed herself to get grabbed in order for her to shine. That's what she was doing. Roxy's so nice. But yeah, that's when we cut over to the parting ways. Again, the mage is like, Roxy, do you want to join us? Please join us. Your husband can wait. It's fine. Whatever. You don't need him. Just come join us. That chick was all over Roxy. Sees her for the goddess that she is. But again, she was also, again, fulfilling the role of two people. It's like, wow, we'd love to have you join our party. You're that talented. Who would not want her? But yeah, that's when we have the, parting of Sarah. Nice little comment right here saying, don't compare the two of them. Out loud. It technically says out loud. Don't compare the two of them out loud. Reese is always comparing them. Always comparing them. This one's good this way. This one's good this way. This one's about this. This one's about this one. They each do their own thing. I love them all. But yeah, I think this is a very, very important part as well for, again, the whole perspective of Rudius bringing in multiple wives. We got the reason why Rudius is not accepting Sarah and why he's not just bringing in anybody into his harem, that there is sort of boundaries that Rudius does have to bringing in people. Now we see Sylphie's perspective. Because again, I think a lot of people are going to acknowledge this point that Sylphie is sort of put in the position of being the head of the wives. That she's sort of like the gatekeeper because she's the first. Like even with Roxy, when she came in, she's always considerate of Sylphie because she doesn't want to overstep the bounds. I came into Sylphie's house. She's the reason why I'm here. She allowed me in. I'm going to be respectful of Sylphie's house. So the question mark here is, what is Sylphie allowing? Is she allowing anything? It seemed like she was accepting of Roxy. And why did she accept Roxy? Because she's seeing that two of them loved each other. Roxy loved Rudius. Rudius loved Roxy. And this is where she's putting down that boundary. This is where she's identifying that. It's the fact that she wants Rudius not to hide any relationships. Don't hide that if you have a woman that you find. Don't, run off and have a child with them and not tell me. At least just be honest with me. But additionally, bring them to me so that I can see if they love you. I don't want you, getting pretty much hooked by somebody who doesn't actually love you. She wants to see them. Again, because when she saw Roxy, she saw that Roxy loved Rudius and said, come on in, Roxy. I seen it in your eyes. You love him. I'm not going to rob him of you when you both obviously love each other. So as long as you bring them to me and I can see that, you're good. And Reese's response is, no, I won't do that to you again. Again, he acknowledges right here the reason why they're special is because they both saved him, but he doesn't think of anybody else like that until Eris comes to his mind. Now, this is a little bit of a question mark moment here, but Eris does come to his mind. He suddenly remembered the red-headed girl who had been special to him once. He remembered her smile, how they struggled to get home from a far-off land, how she wept when he nearly died, and he remembered the last night they spent together. Eris abandoned him, or so he thought for many years. But Rajerd, a man he trusted deeply, was convinced he was mistaken. What if he was right? What would happen then? Sylphie? I might have to do it again. Right here, he's saying, yeah, I think there's going to be somebody else. So all the Team Eris people out there rejoice that at least that door has opened a little bit here, that he could possibly bring somebody else in. Again, she says, as long as you bring him to me first, I'm not going to let you marry someone who doesn't even love you either. Reus in his mind realized that Sylphie has started to develop something of a commanding aura. Again, she's kind of taking over the household. She's kind of deciding who will and who won't come into this household. I never really considered that too, though, because again, right here, Ruius has established sort of this measurement on who he will allow into his family, and that is around people that sacrifice something to save me, people that went out of their way to save me from something. And that's technically Eris. Like, Eris for the longest time had been at his side and helping him all the way on his journey, all the way home. She went out of her way to straighten herself up in order to not be a burden upon him, even though she kept doing things, and even though it kept slipping out that she'd, lose her temper or whatever, she was technically helping him on his journey back home. And yes, when it came to the fight with Orsted, she fought tooth and nail to protect him. And even at the end, when he gets impaled, she is furious and trying desperately to fight off Orsted and pleading for Ruius' life. This is a girl that put her life at the risk to save him from Orsted. So technically she's in that role. She didn't succeed, but Orsted's really strong. Orsted's really, really powerful. But no, overall, I think this entire chapter was really well adapted, despite there being some extra context here. And again, a lot of it's more me kind of just re-dredging up what was not adapted earlier, which is a lot to do with Sarah and she was going through that entire time. But yeah, really well adapted. And again, glad they spent an entire episode to kind of cover this stuff. But the other stuff they did have in this episode was, yes, Eris reaching Sword King. Really good. Again, another one that was solidly adapted. There's a little bit of extra context here, sort of before they get into the true reason for that question that Galfallion gives to them. But yes, we have the little scene where Galfallion's in front of, Nina, Gino, and Eris. He's going to have one of them become Sword King, but he first asks, what do you think separates a Sword Saint, a Sword King, and a Sword Emperor? Nina blurts out strength immediately. It was clear from their collective expression that they couldn't fathom any other answer. But at the same time, they also knew it wasn't that simple. The Sword God wanted to know what came after that strength. What else separated them? Galfallion responds, Nina, what did your teacher tell you to do before acquiring the Sword of Light? She responds, he said, since you're right-handed, train your left hand. He told me I wouldn't be able to release the Sword of Light until I could perfectly wield a sword in my left hand. He says, that's right. Your non-dominant hand is important for using Sword of Light. Do you understand why? She says, if you tense your dominant hand, it will cause the blade to shift to the side. He says, yes, you need to invest all of your battle aura into your attack and cut it in a straight line. It's simple, but that is the innermost secret of Sword of Light technique. The novel kind of gets a little bit more into details about this. Swordsmanship is all about cutting down a moving target. If you charge straight in and use a frontal attack, anyone could dodge it easily. That is why sword wielders attack from below, the side, or diagonally, using unpredictable moves to catch the enemy off guard. However, the first sword god was different. He didn't need those tricks. Instead, he cut down everything by moving faster than his opponent could react. Again, that's a lot to do with the sword god style. It's always been the first one that strikes wins. It's just all-out offense. That's it. But Gal continues, this secret is embedded in the sword god style's history. Each generation of sword gods has worked to slowly unravel inexplicable techniques that the first sword god cultivated. That is what led us to the current form of the sword god style. Once you understand the innermost secrets of the Sword of Light, the principle behind it, and how to practice using it, it's very simple. Anyone with a little talent can easily learn to wield it. That led to the age of the sword god style being considered the strongest. We can hold our heads up proudly thanks to the first sword god and his predecessor who unlocked the secrets of his technique. The Sword of Light is the sword god style's best technique. Practitioners of the style would call it our secret technique. However, there are some who grasp the essence of it better than others. Sword Saints, Sword Kings, Sword Emperors, and the Sword God. Kind of strange, really. We're all doing the same thing, but some of us are stronger and some of us are weaker. That's when he asks Gino, what do you think makes a difference? Gino says, the ability to think logically, to move skillfully, body strength, maybe a weapon. And of course, he scoffs at that. A weapon? How long have you been training? How long have you been training? What Gino really wanted to say was talent, but he knew full well that wasn't the response that Sword God desired. There was no way a question that complex could be answered in a single word. After all, they were discussing the intricacies of talent right now. If Gino said something that stupid, Gal might drive him out entirely. Next, he asked Nina. She considered the answer carefully. Most likely, he was asking what separated them from those who outranked them. It had to be something the Sword Kings and the like had that Nina and her fellow Sword Saints did not. Come to think of it, the people in those positions, Sword God, Sword Emperor, etc., all had life partners. She wanted that too, a boyfriend or a husband. Nina glanced over at Gino. She glanced over at Gino. He saw his gaze glued at the floor, a vexed look on his face. He was younger than her, but lately she'd taken quite an interest in him. Suddenly, a word occurred to her that she often heard the sword god use. Is it desire? I think this is a good answer. I think it's, again, sort of implying the idea of having something that you're fighting towards. And again, it seems like a partner might be that, because she's seen that a lot of them have partners. But of course, he pushes back on that, saying, let's see how long it lasts. What would you do if I told you either you can marry him or you become a Sword King? Oh, Sword King, so it doesn't go that far. You just told me that you think it's because they have a desire, somebody you're going towards. Now you're showing a lot of feminine things, that's showing that you're interested in boys now. But let me see how far that goes. Bam, you're given a choice. You don't take it, then what was it good for? What was it good for? In other words, she would abandon the chance to marry Gino. That showed the limits of her desires. She realized belatedly that her answer had been a mistake. Doesn't seem like that, really, right? Because in the end, she does get to take on Eris. But yeah, he does ask Eris. Eris says, resolve. Determination, really. Determination. I love this because he's like, no, it's not determination. No, it's determination. No, it's not it's determination. Eris keeps saying it's determination. And at the end, he's like, well, okay, I'm not gonna let you have the title if you keep saying that. Okay, I don't need the title. Eris doesn't care. Eris does not care. In the back of Eris's mind, she saw Orsted stabbing Rudius through the chest. She remembered lamenting how powerless she was as he crumpled to the ground. She had become stronger since then. Her power and speed were on a completely different level. However, it wasn't enough to beat Orsted. After years of training, Eris had glimpsed the limits of her abilities. No matter how much she trained, she would never reach Orsted's level. That's an important thing. I think that's the most important thing out of all this skip content right here. Right here, Eris does not believe she has even a sliver of chance of beating Orsted. She would never reach his level. It wasn't an exaggeration. She knew that she would never be able to defeat him on her own, but it would be a different story if she was with Rudius. Together, they might be able to accomplish it. With his magic power and her sword skill, they could win. Even if she sacrificed herself to pin him down, Rudius would land the final blow. If Rudius won, that would also mean a win for Eris. She would die, of course, but Rudius would live on. It meant that she would lose out on sharing a future with him, but she didn't mind that. Dwelling on the future would only make her lose her nerve, and losing her nerve would make her sword dull. A dull sword meant they would both die. If anyone was going to lose their life, it would be her. Eris was determined to pursue that outcome, or perhaps one might say she was resigned to it. But yeah, he's like, okay, the two of you face off against each other. It had been years since Ghislaine first brought Eris to the Sword Sanctum. Eris had been like a wild animal, and because of her, Nina had tasted humiliation. After all, she had wet herself in front of Gino and the other Sword Saints. Just remembering that incident was enough to make Nino want to cover her face and writhe in agony. That said, she had no hatred for Eris. Thanks to Eris, she had become stronger. She discarded her pride and immersed herself completely in her training. Her humiliation was what motivated her. Right here, Nina kind of acknowledging that I've gotten this far because of her was really interesting. But yeah, they face off against each other. Really cool little segment there, showing kind of that difference in speed there. But there's a reason why Eris wins in the end that they don't really kind of get into explaining, obviously, because that would be a lot of narration. Why was Nina slumped against the wall and Eris remained standing? Nina didn't understand. Eris had used a Northgard-style technique. Ordinarily, Sword of Light was overkill for most opponents. Eris had diverted its power into speed instead. She made it so that her attack was only just lethal enough to knock down her opponent, which made her execution that much faster. It wasn't just brute strength, but the distribution of her battle aura. This was a technique she had learned with her training with the North Emperor. The added speed that it gave her was honestly negligible, compared to how much attack power she sacrificed to achieve it. Yet this difference, little more than a hair's breadth, was what it took to claim victory. She completely outdid Nina. Because they were using wooden swords, she had been merely thrown back and bruised. If Eris had used a real sword, it would have plunged right through Nina's heart. A comparatively weak attack, considering the normal power of a Sword of Light that could cleave a person's body in two, but it was enough to kill. As Eris had only had a tear in her uniform, that was more than enough to qualify her as the victor. Nina had lost completely. She lost this duel in every way. The opening move was hers, and she was still defeated. She lost completely and utterly. It was over. A heavy, oppressive weight settled on her chest. I like how Gal asked that. It's vexing, isn't it? You learned something. Book up. It is interesting that right here, Nina kind of acknowledged the fact that that day, for the first time in a very long time, she called Gal her father rather than her master. It's like, yeah, father. Ugh. There's like a separation there as her, being a pupil of his. But yeah, the Sword God waited quietly for the tears to dry, Eris returned to frowning, crossing her arms over her chest as she stood nearby. Once Nina finished sniffling, Gal turned to Eris and said, I will give you the title of Sword King, but I have nothing more to teach you. You are a master. A master, as implied, was someone who had achieved complete mastery in the style. Nina and Gino traded looks. The two Sword Emperors and even Sword King Ghislaine had never received the title of master. That was how exclusive such recognition was. Eris right here has basically learned everything that she can from this style, which is interesting to note. The idea there's nothing more that she can learn from him. She's gotten everything that she can possibly get from this Sword Sanctum. Anything beyond this is just basically she has to overcome somebody to attain the title. She's mastered the style. Now, beat people and you get further titles. You want to get Emperor? Take down an Emperor. You want Sword God? Take me down. Beyond here, it's just titles, basically. And it's sort of to what Galfalion was talking about earlier. What makes an Emperor? What makes a god? We all do the same technique, which is sort of light. What makes these levels? What pushes you further? What makes you stronger? Galfalion says, I can also give you the title of Sword Emperor while I'm at it. But in that case, you will have to battle Ghislaine. If you want to further call yourself a sword god, you will need to kill me. He placed his hand on the hilt of his sword, as if to challenge her to answer. He's like, come on, take my title. Eris shook her head. The title of sword god doesn't matter to me. He says, figure you say that. Well then, what are you going to do now? And I am going to stop there, because I assume that her answer is going to be in the next part they adapt of Eris's story. Any further than this is going to be spoilers technically, but good little segment there to kind of point out the fact that Eris, again, has mastered everything, has achieved a role of master in the art of the sword god style. It's something that everybody else in that room has not attained, which is pretty crazy. Again, one of those little added bonuses to tell you just how much Eris achieved in this place. That's insane. But I'm hoping the rest of what's in this little chapter, this extra chapter, will be put later on, but we'll see. We'll see. But anyways, that's it. That is the entire episode and what they actually covered. And again, everything that was unfortunately skipped. Again, a lot of it's just extra context to what's going on here. And again, a lot of it's more kind of getting a deeper look into just how crazy Eris has kind of pushed herself at this point to kind of improve herself. But I think overall this episode was solid. And again, I think it's good to have a nice adaptation to Sarah's little bit here, because it's more so about Rudius and his relationship with his wives. And again, sort of this system that Sylphie has put into place for who's accepted in the family. So when we bring in Nanahoshi and whatnot, we'll see what's going on. I'm joking. But yeah, good stuff. But I hope you guys found this video informative. Hope you found it entertaining. If you did, hit that like button down below. If you want to support this content, I have links in the description below for a tips link. You can also do a super chat and everything like that. I greatly appreciate you guys' support, keeping this content going, and your support means a lot to me. But until the next time, until the next skip content, y'all take care.